ones. We're back with another story of macabre Tinder encounters. The past has a cruel way of finding us, even when we're buried. This story was told by Andrew, a man who lived through what seemed like a disconcerting event, until a coincidence turned into a nightmare. As he recounted his experience, there was something broken in his voice, as if he hadn't yet come to terms with what had happened. Andrew was an ambitious and optimistic 26-year-old. He lived in a medium-sized city and was pursuing his career as a graphic designer. His life was routine but comfortable. He had close friends, a nice apartment, and plans for the future. However, there was something that bothered him. Vague and painful memories from his childhood, events that he avoided at all costs. It was during a boring evening that Andrew decided to download a dating app. He had recently gotten out of a relationship and thought it would be a good way to meet new people. He casually browsed through profiles without much expectation until he met Lila. Lila was different. Her beauty was understated, but there was something in her eyes that caught Andrew's attention. There was something deep inside that he couldn't quite put his finger on. When he finally got to talk to her, he was even more intrigued. She was witty, intelligent, and seemed to know exactly how to bring up the subject. After a few days of exchanging messages, Lila suggested they meet at a park near the city center. Andrew accepted the invitation, excited, but also curious as to why she wanted to meet him in such a specific place. The park was a place he knew well, or rather, had known in the past. It was close to the house where he had lived as a child before he moved away. On the day of the meeting, Andrew arrived early, walking through the park as he waited. The place seemed smaller than he remembered, but it still had that same peaceful feel. Sunlight streamed through the trees, creating shadows that danced across the ground. He was sent to a bench near the entrance, where Lila said she would meet him. When she arrived, Andrew was surprised. Lila was even more beautiful in person, but there was something about her that he couldn't quite place, something that felt familiar. He couldn't tell if it was her appearance or her presence, but he felt a chill run down his spine that he tried to ignore. "Hi, Andrew," she said, smiling softly. Her voice was calm, almost mesmerizing. He stood up to greet her, trying to hide his nervousness. "Hi, Lila. It's nice to finally meet you," he replied. They walked through the park, talking about work, hobbies, places they wanted to visit. Lila seemed to know the place well, mentioning details like an old fountain that had been torn down and a large oak tree that had still been standing since she was a child. Andrew found it curious, but didn't ask any questions. "Have you been here before?" he said, trying to sound casual. Lila replied, "Yes, a long time ago. This place has always been special to me." As they walked, Andrew began to feel a strange weight in the air. He noticed that Lila asked specific questions about his childhood, where he lived, what he did, who his friends were. He tried to answer her questions, but she evaded them, skillfully changing the subject. They came to a clearing with a worn wooden bench. Lila stopped and sat down, looking at Andrew with an enigmatic smile. "You know," she said, "you're exactly how I imagined you would be." Andrew laughed nervously, not knowing how to respond. "What do you mean?" Lila tilted her head, her eyes fixed on his. "You don't remember me, do you?" That question took him by surprise. "Remember you? No, I don't think so. Should I?" She gave a soft sigh, as if amused by his confusion. "I guess so. But maybe I should show you." Lila took something out of her bag, an old photograph. She handed it to Andrew, who took it with shaking hands. It was a picture of two boys and a girl playing in an old-looking house. He recognized it immediately. It was him when he was about 6 years old, playing with his childhood friend Timmy and another child he couldn't remember. "Where did you get this from?" Andrew said, his voice laced with shock. Lila smiled. but now there was something cold in her expression. "It's a memory. You don't remember me, but I remember you, and everything that happened at home." Andrew felt the air around him grow heavy. His head was full of questions, but fear began to take over. "What do you mean by that?" "Who are you?" Lila moved slowly, still holding that smile that now seemed full of hidden agendas. "I am someone who has waited a long time to meet you again, Andrew. Someone who has unfinished business with you." Andrew tried to back away, but his legs wouldn't budge. Something in Lila's expression changed, growing darker. He knew in that moment that something terrible was about to happen. Andrew looked at Lila, his hands shaking as he held the photograph. "That's impossible. I don't remember you. How did you get this?" he said, his voice wavering between confusion and fear. Lila took a few steps toward him, her smile growing darker. "Of course you don't remember, Andrew. You were so little, so innocent. But some things, even when buried, don't go away. They wait." Those words fell on Andrew like a weight. He took a few steps back, but his legs felt like they were made of lead. His mind was a jumble of old memories and Lila's disturbing presence. The photograph in his hand was a cruel reminder of a past he would rather forget. "I don't understand," he said, trying to remain calm. "If you know me, why didn't you say anything before? Why now?" Lila tilted her head, her eyes never leaving his. "Because now is the right time. For years I have waited patiently, watching you for so long, and now, finally, you have come to me." Andrew felt a chill run down his spine at those words. He looked back, realizing that the park was almost empty. The sun began to set, and the shadows of the planned trees grew, enveloping them. He tried to think of an excuse to leave, but his curiosity, mixed with fear, kept him there. "Lila," he began, trying to regain some control over the situation. "If you know me, if you remember me, can you tell me what happened? Why do you have this picture? Why were you waiting for me?" For a moment, Lila's smile disappeared. Her expression became serious, almost sad. "You really don't remember anything, do you? The house, the basement, what happened to Timmy?" The mention of Timmy made Andrew choke. He hadn't heard that name in years. Timmy had been his best friend growing up, but something had happened, something he could never quite remember. He knew their friendship had ended abruptly, and his family had moved away soon after. Whenever he tried to think about it, he felt an inexplicable emptiness, as if his mind refused to access those memories. "What do you mean? What happened to Timmy?" I asked, with a voice now full of urgency. Lila didn't answer right away. She walked toward a small path between the trees, gesturing for Andrew to follow her. Against his better judgment, he did. The silence was almost deafening, broken only by the sound of their footsteps on the dry leaves. They came to a clearing where an old house stood, partially hidden by the vegetation. Andrew stopped, feeling his heart pounding. He knew this place. It was the house he had lived in as a child, before his family moved away. He had no idea it was still standing. "Why did you bring me here?" he said, his voice shaking. "You have to remember," Lila said, turning to face him. "It all started here." Andrew hesitated, but followed Lila into the house. The door was ajar, and the interior looked exactly as he remembered, although older and dustier. Every step inside seemed to trigger fragmented memories. He saw the old couch where he used to watch TV, the faded rug his mother hated, and the marks on the wall where he and Timmy had played. But there was something else, something dark. His head started to swim, as if his mind was trying to block out those memories again. "Do you want answers?" Lila asked, her tone bordering on impatience. "They're in the basement." Andre froze. Oh, the basement. He knew there was something wrong with this place, but he couldn't remember what. All he knew was that he avoided thinking about it, as if his mind was protecting him from something. I can't, he said, taking a step back. You must, Lila insisted, her voice now firm. If you don't, you'll never understand. You'll never know what really happened. Before Andrew could protest, Lila opened the basement door. A strong, disturbing smell wafted up the stairs, and Andrew felt a shiver run down his spine. He looked at her, expecting some explanation, but Lila simply walked down the first few steps, gesturing for him to follow her. You know you have to come down, she said. It's inside you, even if you've spent years pretending it's not. Reluctantly, Andrew began to descend. Each step felt heavier than the last. The dim light from Lila's flashlight illuminated the shadowy space, revealing stained concrete walls and a dust-covered floor. When he reached the bottom, Andrew saw something that made him gasp. In the corner of the basement was a small child's bed with faded sheets and broken toys all around it. Next to it was a stack of boxes filled with old papers and photos. He found one of the photos. It was of him and Timmy playing in the backyard. "Why is this here?" he said, his voice filled with confusion and fear. "Because you need to remember," Lila replied, moving closer to him. "Timmy disappeared, Andrew. And you know what happened. You just don't want to admit it." Lila's words hit him like a punch. Images began to flood his mind. Him and Timmy playing in the basement, exploring the space as if it were a secret cave. But there was more. Something had happened that night. Something terrible. I don't know," Andrew said, his hands covering his face as tears began to stream down his face. "I don't remember." Lila knelt beside him, placing a cool hand on his shoulder. "But I remember, Andrew. I was there, and now you need to know the truth." Before he could respond, Lila's flashlight went out, plunging the basement into complete darkness. Andrew heard a sound, something coming from the back of the room. It was a low sound, almost like a moan, but it was filled with something that seemed out of this world. "Lila, what are you celebrating?" he said, his voice full of panic. "It's time to remember," she said, her voice different now, as if it had several timbres at once. Andrew felt something moving in the darkness, something that seemed to be approaching him. He tried to stand, but his legs wouldn't respond. He was trapped, not just physically, but by the truth that was about to be revealed. The darkness around Andrew was almost palpable, heavy, as if the air itself were condensing. He tried to breathe deeply, but each breath seemed harder than the last. The sound of something moving in the darkness grew clearer, soft footsteps mixed with a low noise, like a moan or a shushing sound. "Lila?" he called, his voice shaking. "Lila, what's going on?" "You already know, Andrew," she said, but her voice sounded different now, deeper, more distant. "You just have to accept it." Andrew felt something brush against his shoulder, as if a cold hand had brushed his skin. He stepped back but stumbled and fell to the concrete floor. Lila's flashlight suddenly came on again, illuminating the basement with a dim, eerie light. He looked up and saw what appeared to be a shadowy figure in the far corner of the room. The figure was small, about the size of a child. It stood hunched over, as if staring at the ground. When Andrew tried to move, the figure slowly moved its head. The face was Timmy's but distorted. The eyes were sunken, black as the darkness that surrounded them, and its mouth looked as if it had been forced into a grotesque smile. "Timmy," Andrew whispered, the name involuntarily leaving his lips. The figure took a step forward, its body moving erratically, as if every movement was a struggle against something invisible. "Why did you leave me, Andrew?" it said, but its voice was a mixture of tears and anger. "Why did you never come back?" Andrew began to remember. The fragmented memories began to come together like pieces of a puzzle he had avoided putting together for years. He and Timmy had been playing in the basement that night, laughing and hiding from each other. But then something changed. They heard a sound coming from the darkest corner of the basement, a low, pulsing sound, as if something was breathing there. Timmy, always the braver of the two, decided to investigate. He grabbed a flashlight and went to the corner. Andrew stayed behind, scared, calling for Timmy to come back. But Timmy didn't come back. His friend's scream echoed through the basement. He ran upstairs and closed the door behind him, locking it. He stood there, listening to Timmy's screams grow fainter until everything went silent. When his parents returned home, he told them a different version of the story, that Timmy had run away. Andrew never had the courage to tell them the truth. I didn't know what to do, Andrew said now, tears streaming down his face. I was just a kid. I was scared. And you left me here, the figure replied, now closer. Timmy, or whatever that thing was standing just a few feet away from Andrew, and the look in his eyes was a mixture of pain and hatred. You locked me away with that thing. You knew I needed you, and you abandoned me. Andrew tried to back away, but he was pinned against the wall. I didn't know what to do. I was just a child, he said, but he knew his words sounded hollow. The figure stopped, tilting its head strangely as if studying Andrew. Then Lila appeared behind it. The light from the flashlight flickered across her face, and the smile she wore seemed colder than ever. He's right, Timmy, she said, placing a hand on the figure's shoulder. He was just a kid, but now he's not anymore. And it's time to settle this. Lila looked at Andrew, her eyes shining in a way that seemed otherworldly. You knew from the moment you saw me that we would meet here, that you would need to face what you left behind. Who are you? Andrew said, his voice barely above a whisper. I'm a memory, Lila said. A shadow he's carried all these years. Part of you that never went away. And now finally we can confirm it. Before Andrew could react, Timmy lunged toward him, fast and with an unnatural strength. Andrew tried to dodge, but was thrown to the ground. He felt the figure's cold hand wrap around his neck, squeezing with a strength that seemed impossible. As he struggled, Andrew saw flashes of memory, moments from his childhood with Timmy, their laughter echoing through the yard. The night, everything changed. He realized he was on the brink of despair. But then, something inside him changed. He didn't know where the strength came from, but he gathered everything he had inside. I'm sorry, Timmy, I'm so sorry. Timmy's figure froze, his black eyes seeming to waver. The hand around Andrew's neck loosened, and he was able to breathe again. Lila took a step back, watching the scene with an unreadable expression. Sometimes forgiveness is the key, she said almost to herself. Timmy's figure began to fade away, like smoke being blown away by the wind. Before he disappeared completely, he looked at Andrew one last time. You left me, he said, but this time his voice was sad, not angry. But now, I can go and rest. When Timmy walked away, the basement fell silent again. Lila smiled, but this time her smile seemed more human. You faced your past, Andrew. Now you can move forward. Before he could ask what that was, the flashlight went out again, and when it turned back on, Lila had also disappeared. The silence in the basement was deafening. Andrew lay on the cold floor for a few minutes, trying to catch his breath and understand what had just happened. Lila's flashlight, now lying next to him, was still on, emitting a dim light that danced on the concrete walls. His body felt heavy, but he finally managed to stand up, holding onto the wall to keep from falling again. He looked around. The basement seemed empty now. There was no sign of Timmy, Lila, or the shadows that had been stalking him. Only the echo of their breathing filled the space. But somehow, he knew this wasn't the end. There was something more he had to do. He walked to the corner where he had seen the small child's bed and the toys scattered around. Now the place looked different. The stains on the walls and floor were gone, and the toys were intact, as if time had been turned back. However, in the center of the bed, there was something that caught his attention: a photograph. He picked up a photo with shaking hands. It was the same one Lila had shown him at the park, but now it seemed more complete. Besides him, Timmy, and the other child, there was another figure in the picture: Lila. She was standing in the background, a little out of focus but clearly present. Andrew saw that the photo wasn't just a memory, it was a key to understanding what had happened. He walked slowly up the basement stairs, still holding the photo. When he opened the door to the main floor, the smell of dust filled the room. The house was as he remembered it, but with a stillness that seemed heavier than before. Andrew decided to leave. He needed some air, first to get away from this place. As he opened the front door, he was blinded by the sunlight. Time seemed to pass differently inside the house. It was morning now, and the sounds of the city began to fill the air again. He walked back to the park where it all began, feeling exhausted but determined to understand. He sat down on the same bench where he had found Lila and looked at the photo again. Now he saw it more clearly. Lila wasn't just someone waiting for him. She was part of what had happened that night. As he looks at the photo, one final memory emerges. He remembered Lila that night in the basement. She wasn't just a childhood friend. She was there with Timmy and Andrew. It was she who convinced them to go down, who insisted that they investigate the dark corner of the basement. But when Timmy disappeared, she disappeared too, as if she had never existed. Andrew felt a weight on his chest. Lila wasn't a person, at least not anymore. She was a manifestation of his guilt, of his inability to face what happened that night. She was a living memory, an echo that would follow him until he finally accepted the truth. With a sigh, Andrew put the photograph in his pocket. He knew he would never forget what had happened, but he felt he could now move on. Timmy's shadow and Lila's enigmatic smile would still be etched in his mind, but somehow he knew they had finally found peace. And with it, so had he. As Andrew walked out of the park, he felt something had changed. The weight he'd been carrying for years seemed lighter, and the world seemed clearer, more real. But even as he walked away, he felt Lila was still there, somewhere watching, not as a threat, but as a reminder that some secrets never completely go away. I hope you enjoyed the story. Tomorrow I'll be back with another creepy story, still about macabre Tinder encounters. Don't miss it.